Well, our top story is, of course, Maharashtra. The state has reported a jump of 5,427 cases on Thursday, and Mumbai has reported a jump of 736 cases in 24 hours. The BMC has announced new rules for the city. Amravati and Yavatmal, two other districts in Maharashtra, have been placed under COVID restrictions as well. The positivity rate in Amravati is surging at 53% currently, and experts have told NDTV that the new, more transmissible COVID-19 mutations have been detected. Could this have the potential to undo India's success story so far? Well, that's the big question that we're asking. We'll also closely examine what's happening in Maharashtra. Dr. Shashank Joshi, member of the COVID-19 task force in Maharashtra, joins us this afternoon. We also have with us Dr. Rahul Pandit, the Director of Critical Care Fortis Hospitals in Mumbai, who's also a member of the COVID task force in Maharashtra. Thank you both very much for joining us. Dr. Joshi, I have to begin by asking you, can you analyze and break down for us what does it mean, this new mutation that has been detected in Amravati, the positivity rate there surging to 53%. Does this have the potential to spread to the rest of the country as well?
Rishika, thank you for having us on the show. At the onset, I would like to say that mutants have always been there for all viruses, and COVID and coronavirus is no exception. Corona is a slow-growing virus. This mutant strain, if it is rapidly transmissible, particularly the Amravati variant, it may have implications for public health. If we mini-seal and micro-contain that area and ensure that tight masking policies are put in place, micro-containment is done, we will be able to mitigate the challenge. Yes, it has a potential to spread, but I think we can clearly ensure that we can abort that threat. We have a yellow signal. We don't want it to become red. We want it to become green. And I think it is doable and possible. Beyond Amravati, we have seen a lot of clusters. And these clusters came in families. And that raised the suspicion that it is mutant, because we know that non-masking or lack of COVID-appropriate behavior is happening across the country. And Vidarbha, Marathwada and Kerala were outliers. So more genome-wise surveillance we do, the better it is. It appears to be a de novo or an inborn strain or an Indian strain. And even Yavatmal has reported another strain. If they are found to be more transmissible, certainly it is a cause for worry, and a micro-containment strategy will have to be put in place. But beyond that, one good thing is that the death rate is very low. And second thing is India has a very good recovery rate. Also, the COVID which comes because of the mutant strains and the normal COVID, behavior-wise is no different. So treatment strategy will still remain the same. But we'll be back to square one. We'll have to aggressively do testing, contact tracing, we'll have to do aggressive masking, and we'll have to do a lot of information, education and counseling. So all the public health measures which we had put down in March and April, we'll have to rewire them. I don't think we can afford a lockdown, and we'll have to be extremely cautious and careful while doing this.
Dr. Joshi, you make some very important points. You're saying that the E484K variation, the mutant that we're seeing in Amravati, is in fact showing signs of being an Indian strain. So then what you're saying is that this is not linked to the UK, South African or Brazilian variants that have been found in India. Can you just clarify?
Yes, absolutely. I think this is... See, India has its own strains, and they have been more than 240 reported from India itself. And we have excellent genome institutes, we have NIV, we have some excellent genomic institutes in Delhi and across the country. And they have been doing a very good job of reporting these strains, not from now, but maybe the whole year throughout. Across the world, there are more than 5,000 strains. So this current strain appears to be more of an Indian strain, but it may have features which are similar to an African, Brazilian or a British strain.
Okay.
And only thing is that whether it is more transmissible, I think we'll need more data. Currently, we don't have too much data in public domain. We have just found out that there is a new variant there, and we are going by the cluster and the high test positivity rate which was seen in Amravati, which was like an outlier. Amravati was a real outlier in the whole state of Maharashtra,
right,
because at 53% we thought was like a freak case, but that was not a freak case. The denominator was very small. That is why that number of TPR of 53 appeared high, but still it was extraordinarily high for any stretch of imagination, and mutant has only proven that point.
All right. Dr. Pandit, so far what we know about this variant is that it is more transmissible. There is evidence also to suggest that in the UK, the strain that has been found has proven to be more lethal as well. What do we know so far about what's being touted as the Indian strain? Is it more transmissible? Is it going to be more lethal?
So as we as we heard Dr. Joshi say, there are a number of strains in India which have already been reported. Probably more than 200 odd strains have been reported. So this strain, whether it is more virulent or lethal, what we generally call, is quite difficult to say. At the moment, we don't even have an official confirmation. I have not seen an official publication which actually says that we have a new strain which is prevalent in the whole population. But yes, 4 samples or 5 samples have tested positive. Luckily, it doesn't look like from the symptoms which we are seeing in the patients in Amravati and Yavatmal that the virulence seems to be any different. So I think the treatment strategy still remains the same. But what is important is that we are actually back to square one. So we need to improve our denominator. The denominator improves by the fact that we need to do a contact tracing for every person. On every one positive patient, we should be doing around 18 to 20% contact tracing. And we need to go back to our basic rules of masking, sanitization, and social distancing. As Dr. Joshi rightly pointed out, small geographic area lockdowns or shutdowns may be something which may be done, but a total lockdown is absolutely not something which our country can afford, or even a state can afford.
Right. So, I mean, a more localized containment strategy is what you're recommending. But, let's also get an opinion from Dr. Banerjee. He's an infectious disease expert and a former consultant with ICMR, as well as a former member of the World Health Organization. He's joining us from the UK. Dr. Banerjee, thanks so much for being with us. I want to ask you, what do you make of these developments that are taking place in India? There is an Indian strain now that could potentially cause damage. We know that the E484K variant that's been reported in the UK, for instance, has been more transmissible and more lethal. How are you looking at these developments in India?
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. Actually, what I feel is that, what we have seen is there are a number of different strains. But if you see the new strains that have created chaos in the last few months, the UK strain, Brazilian strain, and South African strain, the main problem that we are facing is mostly of increased transmissibility. Increased lethality in certain population is not yet very well proven. But the problem that I am anticipating much more is because of the E484K mutation, as the glutamate residue is replaced by lysine in the 484 position, there can be a big chance of vaccine failure. We already have a big news of South Africa returning the Covishield vaccine because of less immunogenicity and less protection for the South African variants. So right now, when the epidemic, the first phase of the epidemic, the curve is going down, we have new resurgence of cases as you rightly told in Amravati and in other districts of Maharashtra. As we already have a new surge of cases, what is extremely important right now is to get representative genome sampling of the newly positive cases and get whole genome sequencing done.
Right.
Because and the other thing is, I feel that the new the UK decision of going for a challenge trial is probably going to answer this question in a much better way.
All right. The UK human challenge, of course, is a whole different story, and we will talk about that. It's an extremely important development that's taking place. But you raised two important points. One is the need to increase genome surveillance in India to better identify mutant strains. The second thing that you talk about, is possibility of vaccine failure. Dr. Pandit, one of the things that, one knows about this particular mutant is that, it is essentially resistant to antibodies. So it can potentially infect a person who has antibodies as well. Does that raise concerns and questions over vaccine efficacy, especially the vaccines that are available here in India, Covishield and Covaxin?
Absolutely. So that is a real concern. If these reports are indeed clear, the viruses are known to mutate to protect themselves. That's the inherent nature of the virus. And if at the moment the mutation which we are seeing is actually resistant to the neutralizing antibodies which are produced by the vaccine, or the natural antibodies which have been produced in a person because he got infected, the neutralizing antibody, then it is a matter of concern, because it does put the vaccination program into a bit of jeopardy. But is this new? Is this something which is heard for the first time? Absolutely not. we've gone through the flu vaccination. Every year there is a new vaccine strain which comes out, which is basically tweeted for the current strain available. So I think this is something which all the vaccine manufacturers and scientists are aware of. Yes, the speed at which it is happening right now is concerning, but it is not the nature of the virus to actually remain in one strain at all. It is known to protect itself and keep on changing its nature. So the vaccine manufacturers and the scientists are aware of that.
Dr. Joshi, are you concerned? I mean, we know that the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, has a diminished efficacy when it comes to the South African variant, for instance. As far as the Bharat Biotech vaccine is concerned, we don't yet even have the efficacy data for the phase 3 trials. So there's no information that's available to us at the moment on whether it's going to be effective against mutations. Can people who've been infected with COVID or people who've even been given, the vaccine be reinfected given the fact that these mutants are notorious for surpassing antibodies?
Oh, absolutely. I think we have a clear-cut concern there. And I think we need to have better data, better genomic data mapping. We need much more science in this whole direction. And I'm certain that then the tweaking of the vaccines will be appropriately done. We definitely are still on a learning curve as far as COVID vaccination, COVID immunology, and COVID genome sequencing is concerned. And I think it is a clear, yellow signal that we need to be alert, cautious. And the biggest problem with this 384 is, as Dr. Banerjee said, is the immune escape, and lack of ability to have a neutralizing antibody. So the Covishield program, which predominantly healthcare workers have got, they have a risk, they stand a risk of getting reinfected. We don't want to scare anybody. I personally feel that we will be able to micro-contain various hotspots and these hot clusters which have emerged in some parts of Vidarbha and Marathwada. Not all of them may be mutant. There has also been a little bit of lack of masking, inappropriate behavior, lot of weddings and social gatherings. So I think if we take some stringent public health measures in place, I think we should be able to mitigate it and move forward.
Dr. Banerjee, very last word to you. Many experts, have said that the reason that India's COVID numbers have been declining, in the last few months is also to do with the fact that, there could be herd immunity. The seroprevalence in India has been very high. Do you believe mutations have the potential to undo that success story?
Yes, actually, yes. There is probability of this herd immunity failing in case of mutations developing, if there is rapid development of mutations. But the good part about infection immunity or herd immunity, other than the vaccine-induced immunity, is that the infection immunity will be against many different proteins, all the immunogenic proteins of the virus. And if you have particularly the E484K mutation, which is there in the spike protein, and the related failure of vaccines that are being reported from South Africa is because the vaccine is producing immunity against only one protein. If that is mutated, the possibility of mutation failure is more. Probably, this would be more important for vaccine failure than herd immunity failure. That is my...
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Joshi, Dr. Banerjee and Dr. Pandit for sparing your valuable time and answering our questions so very patiently. Does India have its own mutant strain now? That's the big question. The Amravati strain is something we'll continue to talk about. But let's shift our focus to the other interesting aspect of COVID-19 that we're tracking today. Can COVID-19 mysteries be solved via genetics? Can your DNA, in a certain sense, determine how susceptible you are to COVID-19? Well, the Met Genome and the Sci Genome Research Foundation say that DNA can determine susceptibility to COVID-19. The ACE2 receptor, which is found in the human body, actually has the potential to determine whether you're more prone to catch the severe disease. It's an absolutely fascinating concept. Dr. Vedram Prasad, he is a scientist and CEO of Met Genome. He's joining us. Professor Girdhar R. Babu, Professor Head of Life Course Epidemiology from the Public Health Foundation of India, is also with us from Bangalore. Thanks so much for joining us on this extremely interesting conversation. Dr. Vedram Ramprasad, can I begin by asking you, what is the correlation between genetics and COVID-19? What have you found?
Its genome is mutating, and A lot depends upon how either the host genome, like humans, or the viral genomes behave and how they change, influence the outcomes of the disease severity or transmissibility. Apart from the viral genome, even human genomes, there are individuals who get COVID and who are asymptomatic or who are mildly symptomatic. There are individuals even in middle age or young age with no comorbidities, but go into a very severe disease, get into ICUs, or even unfortunately die. It's because of there are certain variants in our genome which make us more susceptible to the severe COVID. There are several papers published, and we've been working on analyzing several genes in the human genome as to what makes some of the individuals get severe COVID. For example, it's well proven beyond doubt, there are certain variants in the blood group genes, the ABO blood group genes. Some of the specific blood group gene variants make individuals get much severe COVID compared to other individuals. So apart from studying the host genome, which is very critical, how the virus is mutating, it is also important for us to understand, we humans, is there any specific genetic variants which make us more susceptible to severe form of COVID?
Well, it's an absolutely, fascinating conversation. I want to also bring in Professor Babu into the conversation. Professor Babu, many say that Indians, have been very lucky when it comes to the COVID-19 pandemic, at least so far, and I don't want to jinx that. Can India's low mortality and low morbidity, in a certain sense, be attributed to our genes?
Yeah, apart from gods and genes, there are several hypotheses around which why Indians have lower morbidity and mortality. Some of them include younger age of Indians and probably cross-infection with other types of coronaviruses in the past, which is generally now very famously known as hygiene hypothesis. And also, there is also some kind of hypothesis around whether T-cell response can also be instrumental in this. So there are multiple hypotheses, including the role of whether we have a genetic advantage. So that needs to be further investigated. So there are both control arms and the arms where Indians will have to be, tested to see whether this is indeed true, whether the severity can be reduced because of the genetic status, or is it also because of some other environmental factors, or is it a combination of both?
Well, can COVID-19 mysteries actually be solved by understanding human genetics? It's a conversation we'll continue to have. Thank you both, gentlemen, for joining us on the show with your perspective. We're going to slip into a very short break. But COVID variants is not just a cause of concern here in India, but elsewhere in the world. We'll get you a special story from Germany on the other side. Stay with us. Welcome back. Over to Europe, where just like India, there are fears looming over new coronavirus variants and mutations. Governments have introduced new measures. In Germany, for instance, a national lockdown was extended and new border restrictions have been introduced. For more, let's go across to Thomas Sparrow, correspondent with our partners DW, who joins us from Berlin. Thanks, Thomas, for being with us. German leaders have introduced, that the country is going to be in a lockdown till the 7th of February. And this lockdown, of course, was extended despite the fact that numbers continue to decline and even deaths continue to decline. Can you explain why?
Well, it is true that infection and death numbers are going down in Germany, as well as the numbers of coronavirus patients in intensive care. The country, in fact, has recorded the lowest numbers of new infections since October, and there are also fewer hotspots in comparison to the end of last year. But, and this is a decisive but, there is growing concern among politicians about coronavirus variants which are considered to be more infectious, and some of which have already been found in Germany. And this is the reason why the lockdown in this country was extended until the 7th of March, although at the same time hairdressers will be allowed to reopen sooner than that, and each region can additionally decide whether to reopen schools. Among Germans, there's also concern about these variants, and in fact, a recent poll revealed that a majority, 56%, are worried about them.
meanwhile, also, can you update us on how the vaccination plan is going on? This must certainly be seen as a reason to hope.
Indeed, Germany's vaccination plan is for many a reason for hope, the way out of the pandemic, if you will. And already more than 4 million people have received one of the approved doses. But the plan has been affected by delays, by controversies, and one of the latest controversies involves local politicians jumping the queue in order to receive a vaccine, despite the fact that the priority now is to vaccinate residents and workers in care homes. And this has all opened a debate. Is there a politician bonus? Should they go first? In other countries like the US, political leaders believe that by going first, they will build public trust in the vaccine. But Germany has a more egalitarian approach. National leaders have said they will wait their turn, which means that Angela Merkel is also waiting in line. And some experts are now even calling for offenders, queue jumpers, to be penalized.
All right, so clearly the COVID variants and vaccinations, all of this a cause of concern, not just here in India. Thomas Sparrow reporting from Berlin. Thanks so much for joining us. That's all we have time for on the show today. Thanks for watching.